Cate Faehrmann, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
Why did you choose to tell the world about your drug use?
Because I am so exasperated at what we are seeing coming out of the mouths of people such as the New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian and her message to young people, which is just say no to drugs, which is there is no such thing as a safe illegal drug. When she was asked whether she's taken drugs, she said no, but then she went on to say, but I'm one of the few people that haven't. So young people are looking at her and switching off. They're not listening to the messages coming from our political leaders because they don't match the lived experience of hundreds of thousands and actually millions of Australians, adult Australians, who have taken illegal drugs at some point in their lives. I saw all of this and I thought, if my story can help bring more honesty and maturity into this debate, if it can bring a recognition that the war on drugs zero tolerance approach has failed, then I'm prepared to take this big risk.
Okay, I want to come to some of those messages and getting honesty in the debate, but you're a politician, an elected official. Taking drugs like MDMA, ecstasy by any other name, is illegal in this country. You've talked about how you used it. You say we knew there were risks, but we were prepared to take them because having a good time was our priority. 6 people have died at music festivals since September taking MDMA, taking pills. Is it responsible as an elected politician to be talking about drugs and having a good time being a priority, as if that's just normal?
I think what is responsible as elected politicians is to tell the truth and to speak the truth when it comes to illegal drug use. And that is that a lot of young people, possibly every third young person, will want to try illegal drugs between the ages of 20 and 29. That's the facts. So just say no isn't working. What is irresponsible is knowing that a zero tolerance approach that includes things like heavy-handed police tactics and sniffer dogs at the gates of festivals is actually costing people's lives. I'll tell you what I do know, or in fact this is what's been reported in the news, is that some of the recent deaths, and I'm including over the last few years, of young people who have taken MDMA at festivals is because they dropped all of their drugs, they took all of their drugs when they saw the sniffer dogs at the entrance of festivals, and that is the most incredibly dangerous thing for them to do. So let's be responsible and look at the facts, and the facts are actually that the heavy-handed police tactics in New South Wales are costing people's lives.
Okay, but let's be responsible and look at all the facts. I mean, you call for an honest discussion. Doesn't an honest discussion include talking about the dangers of MDMA too?
Of course, and there are dangers in MDMA.
And there are dangers that pill testing won't alleviate.
There's also dangers in opioids. There's also dangers in alcohol and tobacco.
Sure.
So I've spoken in my opinion piece, I've talked about the dangers of those drugs. I've talked about my personal story.
But just because we have legal drugs that are dangerous, does that mean we should make more, put more on the table? I mean, it's an argument, isn't it, between harm reduction and legitimising drug use?
What we need to be
equation?
Absolutely honest about is that prohibition has failed. For whatever reason, we have millions of Australians who are choosing to take illegal substances such as cannabis, such as MDMA, because largely they want to go out with their friends, they want to have a good time, they want to relax. That's the uncomfortable truth when it comes to drugs in this country, and it's the truth that politicians are afraid to speak. I know I will get some flack for speaking this truth today, but it's time we did. And yes, some people can come out and say to people, don't take drugs. Whatever you do, don't take drugs. If I was speaking to a young person today, I would say the same thing. The safest thing you can do is not to go out to a dance party this weekend and take MDMA. But if you do, here's how to do so safely. That's what I think the message needs to be. We need to save these young people's lives who are choosing to take drugs.
But Cate Faehrmann, isn't it actually accurate that you can't say do it safely because some medical experts say MDMA is not safe? I mean, the evidence that suggests that, it can't regulate the body temperature, it raises the heart rate to a dangerous level, that the truth is some people can't manage it, and some pills, not just laced with dangerous things, but laced with too much of it.
That's correct. And in some circumstances, that's right. So that's why we need at festivals where they're choosing to take drugs, we need to minimise the harm and reduce the harm because they will take those drugs. So we need things like the great organisations like DanceWise and ACON, who have these volunteers who rove around dance parties, checking on people, how young people are behaving, checking for trouble, going up and asking if people are okay and intervening early. The opposite to that is heavy-handed police tactics. When kids are in trouble, they get scared, they don't seek help early. I think we absolutely have to acknowledge that people will continue to take MDMA. We need to make those circumstances as safe as possible for them because it's just nonsense to expect that they won't do it. We can keep our heads in the sand and say this drug is very unsafe, don't do it, dangerous, bad. Yes, sometimes it can be. And also because we don't know the purity now, we don't know the strength, there's all these dirty things mixed in with them because it's not legal.
Well, in fact, you talk in your op-ed about the increasing strength and the potentially deadly substances within it. But the increasing strength, I mean, the pill testing's not, again, to go back to that, it's not going to do anything about that, is it?
Pill testing can test the strength of MDMA.
Does it? Or
yes,
does
I was speaking to an expert. I was speaking to an expert just last week confirming this. It tests what's in it, including the level of MDMA. So that's why we need pill testing. Let's acknowledge that young people are going to do this. We can send out this message of the horrors associated with illegal drug use. But actually, I think we also need some honesty. And again, the truth is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But millions of Australians have chosen at various points in their life to take illegal drugs. Most of them actually do so safely. But there are harms associated with them, just as there are harms associated with me going and jumping in my car when I leave this building in a few moments. So let's make it as safe as possible. And that's what me coming out today in this way, that's what I hope to be able to do.
People taking a risk is one thing, but the Premier of a state has a responsibility. Do you have some sympathy or understanding of the position the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, is in New South Wales, which she says that pill testing gives people a false sense of security?
I have a sense of sympathy for Premier Gladys Berejiklian, who has to continue pushing this failed war on drugs mantra, because that's the ideology of her government and unfortunately where we are as a society at the moment. So I think what she has to say is in fact reasonably dishonest. The war on drugs has failed. The just say no message has failed. Pill testing will save lives because it's been proven in those countries where they do pill testing, young people who get their drugs checked, if they are told that they have a dangerous, deadly substance in those drugs, most of them will choose to dispose of them. That's what I call saving lives. So the Premier maybe it's very unfortunate, to be honest, that I feel very sorry for the Premier that she has to continue saying, just say no, when the evidence is staring her in the face. It doesn't work.
Why do you think both major parties traditionally haven't leapt at harm reduction policies like this, have resisted it? Presumably they believe that, and their internal polling tells them, that the support base in the community is not there for it. Why else would they do it?
I think that's right. It's a good question. I think the support is for a more sensible discussion about drugs, a support for an approach which reduces harm is growing. I think we can acknowledge that. To be honest, we've had a failed war on drugs approach in this country for about 4 or 5 decades now. It's been an abject failure with billions of dollars thrown into law enforcement and countless lives being lost. It's about time that we had brave politicians from both Labor and Liberals, and there are some, by the way, who stepped forward and said, okay, let's just not talk about pill testing. Let's talk about what a safe society looks like in relation to illegal drug use, because it will continue as it has for centuries.
Just on that finally and briefly, do you think that safe society, as you call it, would mean MDMA being decriminalised?
Yes, I do. We need to decriminalise drugs for personal use and possession. I'll tell you, there are a lot of experts who are supporting this, including recently the Uniting Church. Countries the world over are recognising that the war on drugs has failed. We're having former police chiefs, former politicians, everybody seems to do it when they leave their profession, by the way, calling for a sensible approach which includes decriminalisation, including for things like MDMA.
Cate Faehrmann, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Fran.